Hey, welcome back. This is session 215 Alpha. Next to the last session, this is the arc of the session review. Welcome. So as always, we want to start with a little bit of mindfulness. Remind ourselves what mindfulness is all about. It's that innate ability as a human being to be present in the moment, free of distractions. It's something we have to practice. It is natural, but our attention spans are relatively short, and so we have to remind ourselves to come back, to be fully here. Don't get distracted and multitask. So what I want you to do in our session, our next to last session, I want you to journal for 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, sorry, I misspoke. Someone you need to forgive. Search the recesses of your mind. It might even be in the recesses. It might be right at the surface. Who's someone in your world that's done you wrong that you need to find a way to forgive them? And as the emotionally intelligent 21st century coach that you are, find it in your heart to forgive them in your journal. So we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Hey, welcome back. I know that's a tough one, but necessary one. Here's the arc of a session. Expectation time discoveries, whether 5 minutes or 50 minutes. Remember the arc of the relationship, whether it was 5 minutes or 48 months. Usually set aside 50 minutes for a session. You may set aside more or less, depending on your rhythm. Let's break this thing down into its components. Again, this arc came from our coaching facilitation experiences, from scholarship of coaching and the human mind and leadership. And then the methods. It's a nice method, a nice framework to visualize and therefore execute the arc of a session. Not perfect by any means, but we found it very valuable. Hopefully you have as well. Let's break it down into its components. The arc, one more time. We have a lot of arcs. We have the arc of generations, the arc of life, the arc of your coaching practice, but primarily we talk about the arc of a session and the arc of a relationship. It's meant to be nonlinear. I didn't want to draw a circuitous circle, squiggling all over the place, but I thought an arc represented it well enough. The beginning, a middle, and an end, not in a straight line. Boundaries to the session. So the clock is one boundary. One of the few places that I'll bound a session to talk about the time we have together. All of the boundaries of the relationship come to the boundaries of a session as well. The difference between mentoring and coaching and therapy and coaching and clergy coaching, legal advice, business advice, all of those boundaries remain in place. Boundaries metaphorically in the coaching room. So what comes in, what gets invited out, who gets to invite and dismiss. Those are boundaries. We talk about the coaching room with 4 walls, or the ceiling, maybe some windows to let the light in. Those are boundaries to determine left and right of a coaching session. Whether it's 5 minutes or 50 minutes, It's about the longest. I've coached as long as 90 minutes, but you and they are exhausted by the end of 90 minutes. If it's a powerful coaching session, even if it's not, it's exhausting because of the lack of energy. So be thoughtful about going beyond 50 minutes. And the reason it's 50 minutes is to give ourselves mindfulness between this and what we're going to do next. I have a meeting immediately after this session recording. I'm gonna make sure I take a couple of minutes to decompress and get ready for that meeting. I've had very powerful coaching questions in 5 minutes or sessions in 5 minutes. Usually, as a style of leadership, someone comes to you with a challenge, or you have a challenge that you bring to someone from their purview and coach them through it. Do you mind if I take this time to grow your leadership? Rarely will the answer be no to that question. Both as a coaching style of leadership and as formal coaching sessions, which will be bounded on the calendar. You probably have a rhythm established every week, every other week. Don't recommend going beyond every other week unless it's by exception. So if you're every other week and they miss a session, instead of going an entire month, I would recommend you reschedule and maybe reestablish the every other week rhythm. Because a month is just too long, I think. You've lost momentum. Expectations for the session. That's what we lay down in competency 3. How much time do we have together? What do we hope to discover, and what did we discover? When you think about, we just talked about the competencies in the previous session. When you think about the competencies and laying down that baseline and diving into the heart, and competency 7, we're creating new awareness. Competency 8, we're 7, we're still in the session, and 8, we're looking beyond the session. Expectations, times, and discoveries. It's important to talk about and have in the arc. Within the session, you're going to have ebbs and flows of energy. So be mindful of those. Give them the space they need. Just because the energy ebbs away doesn't mean it's time to start wrapping the session up. A more experienced coach, a more powerful coach will accept that and bask in that silence and re-energize the room. Now, there are going to be times and sessions where the topic is so raw and real that you need to stop the session, or you've had a good coaching relationship and suddenly your leader comes in and isn't really engaged, to reschedule. You're going to have fantastical discoveries where you're going to want to cut the session short. But those are going to be by exception. As a rule, if you've set aside 50 minutes, you should fill that 50 minutes with value. And there are many tools and methods that you can use to create value across the arc of that session, despite the ebbs and flows. Beginning of the session, very important. New coaches, which you're not a new coach by now, rush through competency 3 and dive into the heart. I don't want you to do that. I want you to take your time in competency 3. It's one of the few competencies that all markers are relevant in every session. I was just doing an assessment last week of a coach, and he'd been coaching the leader for a long time. And they would spend 1 minute in competency 3. And I remarked to him all 3 times, even though you know each other, and even though there's a lot of trust and safety in the room, and your leader came in with a very clear idea what they wanted to talk about, take some time to explore in the time you have together, what's the best use of that time. If they come in with a 1-sentence declaration, this is what I want to talk about today. Great. I got it. Let's explore that a little bit. What does success look like when we're done? What is the importance to you of this topic? What are some obstacles and opportunities that might be between us and that success and that importance? This is one of those times that, as a coach, I want you to slow down, downshift, take your time. The heart, supporting, adapting, responding, creating, only after I'm thoroughly convinced, A, I've got what I need, or B, I'm not going to get what I need, and it's time to move before I jump into the heart. I'll almost always stay in the beginning a little longer than I'm comfortable. So you looking at the time you have, and if it's 30 minutes, you could break this down to 10, 10, and 10. In 10 minutes in the beginning, 10 minutes in the heart, 10 minutes in the beyond. It's a good framework, not absolute. So you get into 12, 13, 14, 15 minutes in the beginning. It's time to start thinking about diving into the heart, even though you might not have everything you want from competency 3. You have more than 0, might be time to dive into the heart. Supporting, adapting, responding, creating. That should roll off of your tongue by now. When you're in your silence, am I supporting this leader? Is it their house of leadership, their morals? Am I adapting to them and those dilemmas that are being presented, those clashes of morals? I'm just reminding myself of one of the notes that occurs in music is harmonic dissonance. When 2 notes clash and make beautiful music. Your morality can clash with your leader and still have powerful coaching. Responding to what I'm hearing comes from competency 6 and listening. And finally, creating new awareness. Looking beyond the session. I'll remind us again, adults learn by doing and adults learn by recall. You do in your journal in these asynchronous, and you recall by me bringing up new material. Competency 7 talks about beyond, but beyond within the session. Competency 8 talks about beyond, but beyond external to the session. So don't get those 2 confused. When I'm in competency 7, I'm entirely within the session. When I'm in competency 8, I'm looking beyond the session. Again, these aren't entirely linear. You could be in competency 8 thinking you're on your way to close and be brought back into the heart, or even be brought back into the beginning because they've taken an entirely new direction because of a discovery you facilitated. So adapt. Adapt to what you've heard. Respond to what you've heard. Evaluation talks about revisiting competency 3. How did we do based on what we said we wanted to do? Actions. What actions are necessary to accomplish the vision you espoused in competency 3? How are you going to hold yourself accountable to achieve those actions? What are some tools that you could use? Journaling, introspection, reflection to achieve that outcome. Look for an opportunity to celebrate. It's almost always going to be there. And then an ending. 8.9. Who, what, how, when, or where? Not yes or no. Does this look like a good place to stop? You've grabbed the steering wheel. What do you want to do as we close? Leaves the leader in charge. The last thing I'll talk about in the arc of the session is the relevance of the questions you ask based on where you're at in the arc of the session. This will be our final opportunity to recall this. If I'm in the beginning of the session, again, we'll go back to our 30-minute session, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, just as a rough framework. Certainly you're not bound to that. And I'm in the beginning of the session, I'm not going to be asking closing questions. I'm not going to be asking accountability questions. I certainly can't ask evaluation questions because we haven't achieved anything. When I'm in the heart, whether or not I got everything I wanted from the beginning, competency 3, I'm going to focus my attention on supporting, adapting, responding, and creating questions. And I'm going to reserve any beyond the session questions. I'm going to withhold for any foundation beginning questions. I'm going to focus on the heart. And when my coaching mindset has told me it's time to move into the beyond, I'm not going to close the door on the beginning and the heart, but I'm going to try mightily to close strong and not allow myself to wander back into 3 and 4. Or, I'm sorry, beginning and heart. If my leader takes me there and says, if we're in a 30-minute session and at minute 27, they say, yeah, but what about 3.1? I'm going to evaluate whether we have time to talk about 3.1 in the 3 minutes we have remaining. And this is you as the coach controlling the arc of the session and not leaving them hanging. If it's not terribly exigent, like nothing tragic is going to happen if you table it, then as a coach in control of your arc, you might very well say, with 3 minutes left, I'm not sure we have sufficient time to address that. What would you think about tabling it? Conversely, if we're at 27 minutes, you as a coach are not going to ask questions relevant to the heart, because you have to have respect for the leader's time and respect for the clock, respect for the arc. That you've only got 3 minutes left and you just don't have time to deal with this. All right, beautiful people. One session left in our journey together in this review. So I want you to go away and journal for no fewer than 10 minutes on the arc of the session. We'll see you in the next session, final session. Take care.